up, witches? It's me, Luna. And I decided to jump on today and do just a little, not really a vlog, I don't know. Anyway, I was watching, I was on YouTube yesterday, and I saw a video from a channel I'd never heard of before. Um, and it was a witch who was having a bit of a rant about a pagan marketplace that she'd been to. And I won't name the channel, although there was grumpy in the title. And so, she was putting her cards on the table, so to speak. Anyhow, she talked about, little things here and there, but then she went on like a really impassioned and extreme rant about a reader that was at this fair, and how this person was, advertising and asking for a set amount of money. And then they were looking up meanings in a book. And the way she characterized it, it did sound like the person didn't have the first clue what a card meant until they looked it up. But it brought up the subject because I've had a conversation recently with someone else about this, about is it okay or not to offer people readings professionally and then look something up in the book. So I am here to state categorically and unequivocally, it depends. So what does it depend? Well, I'm going to give you a couple illustrations here. First of all, when I very first started reading, you may have heard this story 100 times, but I stole my first deck from my late brother-in-law. He just had it in a drawer. Somebody had given it to him. He didn't give a shit about it. So I lifted it and brought it home. And it was a Waite-Smith deck. And I don't even think did it have a box? I don't remember. Anyway, it had to. But regardless, this was the book that I was using and looking things up in. And then my ex-husband, the first week we met, bought me the Hanson Roberts deck. And the Waite-Smith was kind of a struggle in the beginning. I would get answers, but I really had to look things up and just really, about it. So he bought me this Hanson Roberts, and I already had several Oracle decks, and I thought, why do I need another Tarot deck? I already have one. And I started doing some Celtic Cross readings with it, and it just wasn't hitting. Things weren't making sense, and I thought, what is wrong with this deck? Then I realized that I was using the Celtic Cross that was with the Waite-Smith deck, and I looked up the one in the Hanson Roberts book, and it was slightly different. The four were laid out in slightly different order. Sometimes they go like this, sometimes they go like this, sometimes they go like this. It just depends. And the way the categories were named was different, and in more sort of modern language, because these were the Waite-Smith deck had the Stuart Kaplan. So, it had been aging for a while by then. And the Hanson Roberts just had more modern language, more relatable. And the first Celtic Cross I did with the one that came with the deck, it was like a revelation. It was just bang, bang, bang. Everything was hitting on so hard. Then I went to this book, and in this book is where I read, it says, after laying out the cards, but before you try to read each card, it is well to take a look at the overall picture and try to get an idea of the meaning of the layout in general. Are there several cards of one suit, several court cards, a few of the major arcana? These are all things that must be noted, for they will influence you in deciding how to read the cards separately. And then it breaks down what it means if there's a lot of wands, half wands or whatever. Growth and energy, cups are going to be talking about the emotions. Pentacles are going to be talking about money and the physical, blah, blah. Lots of courts, lots of people involved, that kind of stuff. So that's what I was doing for myself. And then I started carrying the deck around and just sitting down and reading for free for anybody, and I would say, I'm just learning. Can I give you a reading, to help me learn? And the first one I did for a stranger, she was sitting in front of me. I laid the cards out. I'm looking down the whole time because I'm looking at the cards and I'm looking at the book. And the first thing was, okay, I see this many cups. This is emotional. And there were like two standouts, emotional and, whatever. And then I started reading each of them individually, straight from the book. And when I looked up at her, when I was done, she was like this. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "Oh my God, that was so accurate." So that's when I went, okay, maybe I can ask for money for this. And I did my first psychic fair. I asked $10 and told everybody I'm new at this. And and everybody was very happy. They went away happy. Story number two. This is after I was already doing psychic fairs and had been for a little while. And there was a woman who I knew through the witch community, very wonderful woman, very scholarly, extremely knowledgeable, and she read the Waite-Smith deck. And she knew, like by rote, what the meaning for every single card was. She gave me a reading one night, and she would, well, this card means it. She never picked up a book. She never looked in the book, and nothing hit. Not a thing. It did not relate to anything in my life. Continuation of this story, I was doing a psychic fair, and this woman was also reading at the same fair. We were like sitting next to each other at two separate tables. And it was when my daughter was just a few months old. And so my husband would go, and this is my ex, he stayed there all day so he could bring the baby to me when she needed nursing and take her away, walk her around or whatever, if she was fussy. So he said when the day was done, there were these two women that had come in together. And he said he watched them go in. One of them came to me, one of them came to her. And when they walked out of the room and started comparing, the one that had come to me said, "Oh my God, it was so accurate. Oh my God, she got everything." And the other one was like, "It didn't relate to anything. She talked the whole time and it didn't relate to a single thing." Okay, of course, as I'm editing this, other things are occurring to me. So I decided rather than do copious subtitles, I would just shoot an edition here. What I'm realizing in watching this after I shot it is that the woman knew all of the meanings of the cards, but what was lacking was she never tied it together. She herself could not see the story in the cards. So readers that have the gift are going to say, this card means this, and they're going to relate that card to every other card, and the story comes through. A lot of readers, can lay down the cards and they don't even mention individual cards. They just say, here's what's going on. The cards pull the story out of their mind. And that was not going on with this woman. It was a string of this card means this card means this card means this, even to the point of a lack of, she'd give the category, this is the near future, this card means blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't related to anything else. So, what's the difference between these two? The difference is the gift. So, not everyone that can read music and pick notes out on a piano is a musician. Not everyone who can execute technically perfect belly dance moves in a row is a dancer. There is a gift that separates the two. So if you've ever been to a hafla or a little belly dance recital, please go. If you've never been to one, find out if there's a belly dance studio in your town and find out if they have haflas and go, because it's good fun. But you will see there people, we went to one and there was a troupe that had a few members in it that tribal style, and they executed their moves pretty flawlessly. But it was a string of moves, very sterile. And then there was a woman that came out, and she was a woman of size, and she did Egyptian style. So she had this skin tight dress, and I am telling you, I got goosebumps thinking about it. Her move, there was so much soul, so much soul. So then comes the question, is it okay to look up or isn't it? So with a tarot deck, you have 78 cards, and having over 500, decks of various kinds, tarot and oracle. I have a lot of experience in the difference between these decks. And one of the things that really makes one deck different from another is the author and the writing that goes with it. Of course, the other thing is the images. And sometimes you get a deck where it will twist the Waite Smith image in such a way that suddenly you get a whole new insight on it. It's like, holy crap, that's amazing. The same thing happens with writing. Now, when I do live streams and I use multiple decks, and you see me looking up stuff all over the place because I don't have these decks memorized, and because I know, for instance, with a Barbara Moore deck, you're going to get a gem every time, or with a particular deck, I know that the writing is exquisite and has opened my eyes in a number of ways, but I don't have that memorized. And, you know, none of you except 6 of my patrons are paying me. So so yes, I look things up. I felt a lot of shame around it in the beginning. I felt like I had to know my decks inside out. So this is a thing, a point that I want to make, is that you can really discourage someone who has a true gift if you're going to put that hard, it's never okay to. No, always is and nevers usually get you into trouble of one kind or another. So coming at it from the reader's side, here's what I would say. And see, the very first fair that I did, I looked up a couple things here and there, but by then I had a pretty good working knowledge of the cards and what they meant. And I would tell people, I'm going to look up a couple things, you know. If you're going to put yourself, let me start at the other end. If you are just starting as a reader and you feel very passionate about doing this, it's something you really want to do, it's a skill you really want to develop, but you're just starting out. How do you know that it's okay to ask for money for things? So the first thing you should be doing is giving free readings all over the place, right? You should just be testing, trying, practicing. And the best way to know whether you're any good or not is to give readings to complete strangers who you don't know anything about. And you don't ask them to tell you anything. You go in blind. And then you see what happens after you do the process. Because the process isn't just the reading of the cards. The process is you and me sitting down in an agreement that you're going to allow me to read for you, the shuffling, the centering, the grounding, the bringing in of your sources, all of that stuff happens before you even lay those cards out. So you sit down with a person, you lay them out, whatever reaction you get at the end, if you've got people going, oh my God, that was right on, then you've got a clue there that there's something operating beyond the cardboard and ink cards, right? And so you work to really learn those cards. The middle stage is where, and this is where I was when I did my first, it wasn't a psychic fair, it was just a little street fair. My friend, who was an amazing artist, had a booth, and I said, do you mind if I throw a blanket down on the ground? And she said, no. So I put a little hand sign, $10 a reading. I was doing this full Wheel of Fortune spread, so it was 28 cards. And I said, and this was after I'd done several too many readings of people being astonished, I sat down and I said to my guides, please let me know, this is how you clue me in that I'm supposed to be doing this, is have people give me money and be happy that they did. And everybody that came that day was happy, and I made like $50. So that's the middle stage. And in that stage, you charge very little, or better yet, you put up a sign, donation only, readings for donations. And you tell somebody as soon as they sit down, I'm just learning. I've been doing this for this long. People have been happy, but I'm not going to ask for any money from you unless you feel the reading was good enough to give it. All right. Throw it open to spirit. So that way you're letting them know. And even beyond that, if you know your readings are good and solid, but you're still looking things up, you can say, I'm going to look things up. It only means that my memory fails me sometimes. Now, being a postmenopausal woman, that's a for real. So don't judge, you know. Another thing is those of us that are readers are very sensitive. And when you go into a setting of a psychic fair, or you go in and there's lots of strangers coming up and everything, sometimes, and of course, if you're going to do this, you really have to know how to ground yourself and get yourself centered and calm and all that kind of stuff. But still, there are things that can throw you off. And here's one of those things. It's another story. I was at a fair and we had like two readers, per long table. And I was sitting next to one of the most wonderful readers ever, Eileen Berman. Bless you. I hope you're still here, but if you're not, your name is for a blessing. Anyway, this dude, you're in fairs, you'll be reading someone and you can see somebody standing and waiting. And I saw it was fucking Paul Bunyan standing there. This dude was probably 6'5". It was classic. He had dark hair, dark beard, cap, red and black flannel shirt. And it was just like, I remember looking up and going, please don't come to me. Please don't come to me. Please don't come to me. And then when it was time for the next reading, here he comes. And he sits down and I laid cards out and it was really clear. There was a lot of codependent shit going on. There was passive aggressive shit going on. There were problems in the family. There was, so I'm, being as diplomatic as I can and putting things over gently and, and I can feel him getting angry and angrier and angrier and angrier. And I just kept soldiering on. And he finally stops and he says, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to tell me that, and you're supposed to this and you're supposed to that. And I took the cards and I went, picked them up and I said, I'm sorry. You have a very wrong idea about what it is that I do. And you need to go get your money back. I cannot read for you. And he got up and left and he was just, and I mean, I was shaking. And I went through the rest of that reading. There were 15-minute sessions. And fortunately, I did not have a reading afterwards. So I sat and Eileen finished her reading and she was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, so even if you do have really great gifts of grounding and everything ahead of time, psychic fairs are not the best atmosphere for reading sometimes because there are so many energies flying around. And that's that story. And when they do, if you have any kind of anxiety disorder or you're just really sensitive, maybe the reader next to you has somebody that's like blasting off all kinds of toxic energy and it can get in the way. And in that case, oh God, I have my windows open and it's getting breezy. In that case, then, be honest with your client. I'm sorry, my mind has gotten a little upset by this. I need to look something up here because I want you to have the information. It's all about the trust between you and your client. And if you're upfront and honest, then I don't see any issue with it whatsoever. However, if you are, there is the tiniest, what are you? Are you I think it was like the tiniest little spider ever. Anyway, the trust between you and your client. But if you are at the point where you're laying cards down and going, oh, 10 of Pentacles, what's that? Okay, well, 10 of Pentacles is blah, 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 and read it right out of the book, So maybe what you do is pick up the book and go, okay, yeah, or I just wanted to double check, But this all comes into the ethics of being a reader. And I don't want people that really do have the gift, but maybe don't have a new deck entirely memorized, to not be plying their trade and giving their gift and getting compensated for it just because they open a book, So I think we need to be a little bit more holistic in our view. We need to understand that anytime you do the hard and fast, like I said, the never always, somebody gets screwed. So I'd like to know your opinions on this. What do you think? Where do you think you stand with this? And, another thing is trusting yourself of, my guts tell me that I'm not ready for this. Or, just having that own self-referencing gauge. but not caving to pressure externally of somebody saying you shouldn't be looking things up in the book when you know you have a fabulous gift and everybody's happy with your readings, you know? So there temperance. Temperance. You have to temper things with your own good opinion, with your own solid grounding in ethical reading. I'll maybe do a video on that. I think I might have ages ago. Anyway, let me know what you think. All right, I will talk to you soon. Till then, this is Luna. Blessed be.